In today's political landscape, moments of confrontation often reveal more than prepared speeches or staged appearances. The recent exchange between Jasmine Crockett and Kash Patel has become a powerful example of how prejudice and disrespect can be called out in real time. When Patel resorted to a racially charged remark, telling Crockett to go to India, what could have been dismissed as just another heated political jab quickly transformed into a defining moment. Crockett's sharp, fearless, and unapologetic response not only silenced Patel but also highlighted the importance of standing firm against racism and ignorance, no matter the platform. This incident is more than just political theater, it reflects deeper issues of respect, representation, and the urgent need for accountability in public discourse. When it comes to politics and public discourse, words hold tremendous weight, and the way leaders respond to offensive or discriminatory comments can shift narratives, shape public perception, and inspire countless people watching. The moment Jasmine Crockett confronted Kash Patel after his racially charged remark telling her to go to India stands as a striking example of how racism should not be tolerated, excused, or minimized in any capacity. It demonstrated the strength of a leader who is not afraid to call out prejudice head-on and use her platform to transform an ugly insult into a powerful statement of resilience and empowerment. Confronting racism in real time is not simply about defending oneself from verbal attacks, but it is about protecting the dignity of a community, sending a message to future generations, and refusing to allow hate to masquerade as acceptable political rhetoric. Jasmine Crockett's response was more than just a clapback. It was a representation of how to stand firm in moments when others would hope for silence, and how to set an example for those who often do not feel they have a voice strong enough to resist such attacks. The importance of her reaction lies in the fact that racism, when left unchecked, grows louder, more frequent, and more normalized in public life. Patel's remark was not just a personal insult, it was a reflection of a larger mindset that seeks to belittle and diminish individuals based on race, background, or ethnicity. In moments like these, silence could be seen as compliance, and ignoring such a statement could risk signaling to the public that this kind of language has a place in serious dialogue. By immediately pushing back, Crockett rejected the possibility of normalization. She reminded her audience, and the broader public, that accountability must be demanded in real time, not after the cameras are off or after the damage is done. This act of resistance is crucial because it sends a message to others in power. Racist remarks will not go unchecked, and there will be consequences for words that demean and divide. The courage required to confront racism directly should not be underestimated. In a political climate where women of color often face disproportionate levels of criticism, hostility, and personal attacks, standing up to offensive remarks in the public eye requires not only composure but also the willingness to bear the backlash that inevitably follows. Crockett's fearlessness in this moment is significant because it challenges a historical pattern in which marginalized voices were often silenced or overlooked when they spoke against injustice. By speaking up instantly and decisively, she broke through that pattern, proving that silence is no longer an option and that dignity must always outweigh political convenience. Her response also served as an educational moment for those watching. Many individuals who witness racist incidents in their own lives may not always know how to respond or may feel powerless to confront the situation. By modeling strength, clarity, and an unapologetic rejection of racism, Crockett provided a blueprint for others. She showed that even in high-stakes environments, it is possible to assert one's dignity without hesitation, and that doing so can shift the balance of power in the room. Her reaction empowered not only her supporters but also those who have faced similar prejudice outside the spotlight, reminding them that standing up against hate is always justified, no matter how powerful the person behind the insult may appear. Furthermore, confronting racism in real time has the effect of exposing the ignorance and weakness behind such comments. Patel's attempt to belittle with a dismissive and racist remark backfired precisely because Crockett did not allow it to linger unchallenged. Instead, she turned the spotlight back on him, exposing the shallowness of his rhetoric and the lack of substance in his attack. This dynamic is important because it illustrates how hate often collapses under the weight of truth and confidence. Racist remarks are designed to provoke shame, silence, or defensiveness, but when met with courage and resilience, they lose their intended power. In this case, Crockett's reaction stripped Patel's words of their sting and reframed the encounter as his embarrassment rather than hers. Another critical aspect of her response was its resonance with broader societal issues. The remark directed at her was not isolated, it reflected a larger culture of xenophobia and racial hostility that continues to surface in political debates, media narratives, and online discourse. By addressing it immediately, Crockett highlighted the interconnectedness of personal insult and systemic prejudice. She reminded her audience that dismissing such language as just words ignores the way it reinforces harmful stereotypes, fuels discrimination, and perpetuates cycles of exclusion. This awareness is what makes confronting racism in real time not just a personal necessity but a societal duty, as each act of resistance chips away at the structures that allow such language to thrive. Her fearless stance also brought into focus the role of accountability and leadership. Politicians and public figures have a responsibility to uphold a certain standard of respect, yet too often that standard is abandoned when heated exchanges arise. By pushing back, Crockett reasserted the idea that leaders must be held accountable not only for their policies but also for the way they conduct themselves in discourse. This accountability ensures that the public does not grow numb to harmful language and that those who wield influence are reminded of the consequences of their words. Finally, the significance of her response lies in the inspiration it sparked. For many who watched, it was not just about Crockett defending herself but about a larger victory for anyone who has ever been marginalized, insulted, or targeted for who they are. It symbolized resilience and empowerment, sending a message that racist remarks can be confronted head-on, and that dignity does not have to be sacrificed in the face of hostility. Her fearless response became a moment of collective affirmation that hate does not win when it is challenged directly, and that courage in the moment can transform an attempt at humiliation into a symbol of strength. Representation and respect are two foundational principles that determine the strength and integrity of political discourse. When individuals step into public office, they are not only representing themselves but also carrying the voices, concerns, and identities of the communities that elected them. This responsibility makes respect an essential ingredient in every conversation, debate, and exchange that occurs in the political arena. When respect is absent, discussions become less about solving problems and more about silencing, undermining, or demeaning others. The incident involving Jasmine Crockett and Kash Patel illustrates this issue vividly, as Patel's remark did not simply target an individual, it targeted the principle of representation itself. His words carried the weight of dismissal, as though the identity and presence of his opponent were somehow less valid, less American, or less deserving of being in that space. In contrast, Crockett's defense and her firm response reinforced the vital truth that representation must be respected, and that every voice, regardless of race or background, has a rightful place in shaping the national dialogue. Representation matters because politics is not an abstract system, it is an arena where real people from diverse backgrounds seek to ensure that policies reflect the needs and realities of the population. When leaders of color, women, or individuals from marginalized groups take their seats at the table, they bring perspectives that were historically excluded. This inclusion does not weaken the discourse but strengthens it by broadening the scope of lived experiences considered in decision-making. However, representation is only meaningful when it is treated with respect. If leaders from these communities are consistently undermined with personal attacks or racist remarks, the symbolic and practical value of representation is threatened. Crockett's presence in the chamber was not just her personal achievement but also a reflection of the progress made in creating spaces for diverse voices. Patel's attempt to silence her with a dismissive, racially charged statement was therefore not only disrespectful to her but also to the countless individuals who saw themselves represented in her. Respect in political discourse also functions as a safeguard for democracy itself. Healthy debate requires that opponents can challenge one another's ideas without descending into insults that demean personal identity. When respect is absent, it becomes nearly impossible to focus on the issues at hand because the conversation shifts toward defending personal worth rather than debating policies or solutions. The strength of Crockett's response highlighted the demand for respect, not as a personal favor but as a prerequisite for meaningful dialogue. By refusing to allow Patel's comment to stand unchallenged, she reasserted the idea that respect is non-negotiable in the political space, and that disrespect rooted in racism must not be normalized or excused as just part of the game. Representation without respect can often be tokenized, where diverse individuals are visible but not valued. The difference lies in whether their contributions are genuinely heard and considered. Crockett's experience exemplifies the struggle many representatives face when their legitimacy is questioned or undermined by colleagues who use identity as a weapon against them. In this case, Patel's remark attempted to push her out of the conversation, metaphorically and literally, by implying she did not belong. This reflects a broader problem in society, where marginalized voices are often told, directly or indirectly, that their perspectives are unwelcome. Crockett's response countered this narrative, reminding everyone that respect is essential for representation to have real power and meaning. The importance of respect extends beyond interpersonal dynamics, it also influences public trust in institutions. Citizens observing political debates expect their representatives to engage with dignity, even in disagreement. When racist remarks or dismissive comments dominate the stage, it diminishes public confidence in the process and reinforces cynicism about whether the system can truly reflect the values of equality and justice. Conversely, when individuals like Crockett stand their ground and demand respect, they restore some of that trust by showing that discriminatory behavior will not go unanswered. Her actions reassured many that representation is not symbolic but active, and that those who hold office can and will defend the integrity of their roles against disrespectful attacks. Respect in political discourse is also tied to the broader cultural narrative about who belongs and whose voice is valid. For generations, political spaces were dominated by a narrow demographic, and the introduction of greater diversity has challenged long-standing norms. Some view this change as a threat and attempt to use disrespect as a way to reassert dominance. Patel's remark was emblematic of this resistance, attempting to diminish representation by suggesting exclusion. Crockett's pushback, however, reinforced the cultural shift underway. Diverse voices are not only present but also unwilling to accept second-class treatment. This sends an important message to younger generations who may be considering careers in public service, that their identities do not disqualify them from leadership, and that their presence in political spaces must be respected. The exchange also underscores that respect in political discourse is not about politeness for its own sake, but about creating an environment where ideas can be exchanged fairly. Disrespect rooted in racism derails conversations, creates hostility, and forces individuals to defend their right to exist before they can even begin discussing policy. Crockett's confrontation was an effort to reclaim the space so that meaningful dialogue could occur without being overshadowed by hate. In doing so, she not only defended herself but also defended the principle that political discourse should be grounded in mutual recognition of humanity and dignity. Finally, the importance of representation and respect in political discourse lies in its ripple effects. Every time a leader confronts disrespect and demands recognition, it strengthens the foundation for future progress. Crockett's example adds to a lineage of figures who have refused to be diminished by racism and who have instead transformed those moments into lessons about accountability and equality. Her response serves as a reminder that respect is not optional in the political arena, it is a fundamental requirement that ensures every community is heard and valued. Moments of hate are often intended to belittle, silence, or intimidate, yet history shows that they can also become powerful catalysts for change when confronted with courage and clarity. The incident between Jasmine Crockett and Kash Patel demonstrates how an act of hostility can be transformed into a moment of accountability and empowerment. Patel's remark telling Crockett to go to India was a racially charged attempt to diminish her identity and question her belonging. Instead of allowing the insult to linger or pass unchallenged, Crockett's decisive and fearless response shifted the focus away from the intended humiliation and redirected it toward the broader issue of respect, representation, and the consequences of hate in public discourse. By doing so, she reminded everyone watching that hateful language does not have the final word when it is met with strength and truth. Transforming hate into accountability begins with recognizing the weight of words and the harm they can cause. A remark like Patel's may appear to some as just a passing insult, but it carries deeper implications. It reinforces exclusionary ideas, perpetuates stereotypes, and signals to others that such language is permissible in serious political conversation. Allowing comments like these to go unchallenged can create an environment where bigotry thrives unchecked. Crockett's refusal to let the remark slide set a standard of accountability that extended beyond the moment itself. She held Patel responsible not only for his words but also for the broader implications of what they represented. In doing so, she made clear that racism and xenophobia, no matter how casually delivered, must have consequences. Strength in these moments comes not only from responding quickly but also from the manner in which the response is delivered. Crockett's reaction was not rooted in anger alone but in composure, clarity, and determination. This balance is critical because it prevents the moment from being reframed as mutual hostility or a clash of personalities. Instead, her response highlighted the one-sided nature of the disrespect and placed the focus firmly on the accountability of the person who instigated the insult. This kind of strength turns what could have been a fleeting exchange into a lasting lesson about the resilience required to confront prejudice in spaces where it is least expected but most damaging. Another element of turning hate into strength lies in how the moment resonates with those who witness it. Millions of people experience prejudice in their daily lives, often in environments where speaking up feels risky or even impossible. Watching a public figure like Crockett respond fearlessly to a racist remark sends a powerful message of solidarity. It tells individuals who have been silenced or made to feel invisible that their experiences matter and that there is dignity in confronting injustice, no matter the source. By holding Patel accountable in front of a national audience, Crockett amplified a lesson that extended far beyond the political chamber. Hate cannot diminish those who refuse to internalize it, and strength emerges when people transform hostility into an opportunity to affirm their worth. This transformation also plays a vital role in redefining the narrative around hate. Too often, hateful remarks dominate the headlines and conversations, leaving the victims overshadowed by the cruelty of the words directed at them. By responding in real time, Crockett reframed the story so that Patel's insult became less about its intended effect and more about his exposure. He was revealed not as a strong or clever opponent but as someone whose arguments crumbled into personal attacks when faced with opposition. Crockett's strength forced the focus to shift from her belonging to his accountability, showing how quickly hate loses its power when it is stripped of silence and met with resistance. Accountability in moments like these is also about setting precedents for the future. Political figures and public leaders must understand that their words carry influence and that disrespectful or racist language will not go unnoticed. When Crockett demanded respect and addressed the insult head-on, she reinforced the principle that public discourse must be held to a higher standard. This not only impacts those directly involved in the exchange but also sets an example for the broader political community. It reminds others that hateful rhetoric will be challenged and that accountability is a collective responsibility. The ripple effect ensures that those who might otherwise consider such language will think twice, knowing the response will not be silence but strength. Turning hate into a lesson of strength also reflects the resilience required to navigate spaces where hostility is still present. For leaders from marginalized communities, moments of hate are unfortunately familiar. Yet, each act of resistance chips away at the systems that sustain prejudice. Crockett's encounter illustrates how to transform these experiences from attempts at exclusion into demonstrations of empowerment. Instead of retreating, she stood firmer, showing that her identity was not a weakness to be exploited but a source of power to be celebrated. This resilience reinforces the importance of visibility and presence in arenas that were not always welcoming or inclusive. The broader cultural significance of such a moment lies in its ability to inspire dialogue about how hate is addressed in society at large. Crockett's response is not just a personal victory but also a public example of how to confront hate in a way that prioritizes dignity and accountability. It challenges bystanders to consider their own role in either perpetuating silence or joining in resistance. It demonstrates that strength is not only about personal defense but also about using a moment of hostility to create a larger teaching moment for communities, institutions, and future leaders. Finally, the act of transforming hate into strength ensures that negative encounters do not define the individuals targeted but instead become moments that highlight their resilience and character. Patel's insult could have been remembered as a stain on the discourse, but Crockett's response ensured it was remembered as a lesson. It shifted the narrative from humiliation to empowerment, from insult to accountability, and from hostility to resilience. Moments of hate may seek to undermine, but when confronted with courage, they become reminders that strength can emerge even in the most hostile of environments.